Have you ever seen a chicken? I mean, look at it. It's not that impressive. But have you ever seen a fossil of an Ankylosaurus? They're way cooler than chickens, right? And in fact, they are more closely related to birds than most other dinosaurs. In the late Triassic period, around 230 million years ago, the ancestors of both chickens and Ankylosaurus were small proto-birds living in what is now North America and Europe. Over the next few million years, some of these ancestors flew over to what is now China and evolved into feathered dinosaurs. And their descendants would eventually give rise to all the feathered dinosaurs we today associate with Jurassic Park and the rest of the Mesozoic era. But just how did scales turn into feathers? We don't know for sure, but we have a pretty good idea. And this incredible journey of evolution is one of the reasons why we find fossils of feathered dinosaurs in China so exciting. Hi, it's me, and welcome to this channel. The first feathered dinosaur fossils were found in China in the 1990s, and they were unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. They were dinosaurs, but they also looked like birds. And because they were so weird, paleontologists didn't quite know what to do with them. There was Microraptor, a four-winged theropod about the size of a crow with long tail feathers, feathers on its legs and arms, and even a tuft of downy feathers on its head. Then there was Sinosauropteryx, a relative of Velociraptor that was covered in long, slender feathers, kind of like a big, scrawny chicken. These discoveries rocked the scientific community. And since then, more than 20 species of feathered dinosaurs have been unearthed in China, many of which are incredibly well preserved, complete with feathers intact. And that has brought us a step closer to understanding how birds evolved from dinosaurs. Feathers seem to be the key difference between dinosaurs and birds. So if we want to understand how these two groups are related, it helps to figure out where feathers came from. Birds use feathers for all kinds of things like flying, attracting mates, and keeping warm. So maybe the ancestors of birds grew feathers for one or more of these reasons. But how did those feathers evolve? One possibility is that they started out as just little bumps on the skin, like the bumps that sometimes appear on the necks of bearded dragons. In fact, these little bumps may have been the evolutionary precursors to feathers. Just as a bearded dragon can alter the appearance of its neck frills by changing the angle at which it holds them, early proto-feathers could have changed the appearance of dinosaurs in ways that helped them attract mates. This is called the adornment hypothesis, and evidence for it comes from studying modern birds, reptiles, and the structure of feathers themselves. All birds have feathers, but not all feathers are the same. Some are used for flight, like the stiff tail feathers that help a hummingbird steer through the air. Others are used for display, like the long flowing tail feathers of a male peacock. And still others, like the downy feathers on a chick, are used for insulation. And all feathers have a central shaft or rachis from which smaller barbs branch out, connecting to each other with tiny hooks. And these structures look remarkably similar whether they are part of a simple small feather or a complex large one. What this suggests is that all bird feathers evolved from a common ancestor that lived a very long time ago. But what that ancestor looked like and why it sprouted feathers in the first place is still up for debate. The adornment hypothesis isn't the only one out there. Feathers could have first evolved as a way to help regulate body temperature, kind of like how a goose puffs out its feathers to trap a layer of insulating air close to its body when it's cold out. Or feathers could have originally developed as a way to help dinosaurs glide through the air, like how a squirrel uses its bushy tail to help it steer while leaping from branch to branch. If that's true, the ancestors of feathered dinosaurs may have been arboreal, spending most of their time in trees. The problem with the gliding and the insulation hypotheses is that feathers should have been selected for independently multiple times in evolution. After all, lots of animals need to stay warm, and lots of animals would benefit from being able to fly. But as far as we know, feathers evolved only once. And another problem with these hypotheses is that they don't explain the evolution of wings. Wings are unique to birds and their close relatives. And while some feathered dinosaurs had long arms that might have helped them glide, none of them had hands with fingers which are necessary to manipulate the controls of a glider, or the oars of a boat, or the strings of a violin. So the jury is still out on what the first function of feathers was. But we can say with confidence that feathers likely evolved gradually over millions of years. That's because the oldest known feathers come from a dinosaur named Ankylosaurus huxleyi. This strange animal looked a bit like a big chicken and was covered in long, pointed feathers, and it lived during the late Jurassic period, about 160 million years ago. And that means that feathers must have appeared sometime before then. To learn more about how long before, scientists have been studying the growth rings inside dinosaur bones. You see, just like trees, dinosaurs added a new layer of tissue to their bones every year they were alive. So by counting the rings, scientists can figure out how old a dino was when it died. And when researchers counted the rings in the bones of several Ankylosaurus species, they learned that these dinos grew their feathers at around the same time every year, spring and summer. And this seasonal feather growth suggests that feathers served an important biological function. After all, why would a dino bother growing feathers at the same time every year if doing so wasn't important to its survival? Unfortunately, we don't know exactly what that function was. But by studying modern birds, scientists have narrowed it down to 3 possibilities: feathers to attract mates, feathers to keep warm, and feathers to help with flying. Now, while Ankylosaurus may have grown feathers for any of these reasons, the truth is that all 3 make sense. As far as we know, dinosaurs lived in a world without trees, which means that it would have been beneficial to grow feathers to stay warm and attract mates. Meanwhile, feathers probably didn't play a role in gliding or flying at first. Those abilities evolved later, long after Ankylosaurus roamed the Earth. That was a problem for scientists trying to piece together the evolution of feathers and flight. After all, if feathers evolved separately for different purposes more than once, how could we be sure that they also played a role in the evolution of flight? Well, thanks to fossils from China, we can. In 2014, scientists described the discovery of a feathered dinosaur named Tianyulong. She was about the size of a pigeon and spent her life chomping on plants. Her discovery was exciting because she was a member of a group of dinosaurs called ornithischians. Unlike theropods, ornithischians were generally plant eaters with duck-like beaks and stiff tails. Most of them were also much more bird-like than other dinosaurs because they had relatively large heads and brains, bony tails and legs that were shorter than theropods. But despite all these similarities to birds, ornithischians weren't directly related to them. Instead, they were related to another group that included Ankylosaurus and other armored dinosaurs. And Tianyulong showed scientists that even though Ankylosaurus and birds are more closely related than they are to other dinosaurs, their common ancestor didn't look anything like a bird. It was basically just a small, feathered ornithischian with a beak. But Tianyulong's discovery raised more questions than it answered. Why did ornithischians evolve to look so much like birds if they aren't actually related to them? And why do birds look so different from their closest relatives? To answer these questions, scientists are studying the development of feathers in birds. See, while all birds have feathers, not all of them develop the same way. For example, most songbirds develop their flight feathers on their wings and tails, while ostriches develop most of their large flight feathers on their secondary sexual characteristics, their flashy, colorful tails and wattles and beards. When scientists examined the feathers of Tianyulong, they realized that she had developed her feathers the way that ostriches do. That means that the evolution of feathers probably played a role in the evolution of birds. Feathers may have first appeared in dinosaurs as a way to attract mates or stay warm, but once they had feathers, birds could have used them to develop ornaments and other showy displays. Eventually, some of these displays became modified into wings, leading to the evolution of flight. And the discovery of Tianyulong and other feathered dinosaurs in China is helping scientists better understand that process. More feathered dinosaur fossils have been found in China than anywhere else in the world, and they range in age from 150 to 230 million years old. Studying them is helping scientists understand how and why feathers evolved and what role they played in the evolution of birds. It's also helping them understand the environmental pressures that existed in ancient China. Scientists think that late Triassic China was a dry, windy grassland, while the Jurassic China that Tianyulong called home was much wetter, and that's reflected in the types of feathers that the dinosaurs from each time period had. The older dinosaurs had longer, thinner feathers that may have helped them glide, while the younger ones had shorter, fluffier feathers that probably helped them stay warm. All of this is to say that while we may never know exactly how scales turned into wings, fossils from China are helping us get closer and closer to the answer. So keep digging, China. Thank you for watching this episode. If you would like to learn more about feathered dinosaurs, check out the additional resources. And if you want to learn more about incredible discoveries from China, we have an entire playlist of videos about amazing animals from the Middle Kingdom. As always, this has been Paleo Logic. Don't forget to keep on thinking.